And so this week, we're actually going to be we didn't finish the very full part of Acts chapter 2, so tonight we're actually going to close off the last half. And what we're going to see here is that an amplified life produces a community that is unified when we humbly serve our fellow believers. So let's go ahead and find the Bibles in your seats, and then crack them open to Acts chapter 2, verse 42. I believe it's page 679. 679. Now, as you're turning there, this is our first takeaway that we're going to see in this passage tonight, which is a unified community comes when we devote ourselves to spiritual habits. A unified community comes when we devote ourselves to spiritual habits. Alright, so let's go ahead. Let's look at verse 42. It says, "All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, and to fellowship, and to sharing meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer." So as we stop there, we need to first see that last week, these apostles, these believers, went out by the power of the Holy Spirit, and through it, they were able to reach their community, and 3,000 people came to know the Lord because of it. But then what we see now is the story continuing on, where it's like they've all accepted Christ, and now they're starting to form a community, and they're practicing these spiritual habits. So let's see. It says that they devoted themselves. What does that mean? I think a good description of this would be that they gave a great effort, or they persisted, they had perseverance to continue on in what they were doing. A good analogy of this would be an athlete. Someone who is continually on a day-to-day basis working hard for an objective of doing the best that they can in the sport that they're in. And so they have this perseverance to do well in their sport so that they can give it all. So they can persevere and they can devote themselves to it. So we see these apostles, these believers, devoting themselves. To what? Well, here are some things that they devoted themselves to. One, it says that it was devoted to the apostles' teaching. So what did they teach? You see, these apostles were ones who were with Jesus on a day-to-day basis, seeing how he lived, seeing the things that he was telling them to do. And so everything that they were teaching was what they saw Jesus saying to do. They were showing the life of who Jesus was and also how he said to live life. And so we see these believers with the apostles, and they're being taught how Jesus lived. And then they continued on and they had fellowship. Now I want you to understand it's very easy in, I think, our American culture where we walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, how are you?" But do we really honestly want to hear their 5, 10 minute, 15-minute description of how their week was? A lot of times it's just our way of saying "Hey, I hope that you're doing well," and it's kind of just an introduction for us. But for these believers, when they had this fellowship, it was a time where they were on a daily basis coming together. They were having this deep friendship, this intimate friendship, where they wanted to know how one another's lives were. They were wanting and caring about one another and what was going on. And so we see that they are sharing these meals, and this is how they are having this relationship with one another. But then it also kind of takes a second part of it. So they're sharing this relationship with one another through this sharing of meals, but then also they're having a relationship with God. And so this fellowship is coming through the Lord's Supper. And so maybe some of you don't understand what that is. It's a time where they eat bread and they drink wine, and they are understanding and being reminded of the fact that Jesus died on a cross, and that was his body broken, which is symbolism of the bread. And then his blood was poured out to save mankind. And so they're being reminded of the fact of what God has done, because he cared so much for them that he wanted their lives saved because of what Jesus did. So we see them sharing in the Lord's Supper, and and with God. And then finally, it closes on that part of saying that they had the spiritual habit of prayer, which really, truly is the moment where they saw their spiritual need for God, and they were continually going, okay, God, work in my life, give me power to live for you. And they saw that they couldn't do anything unless they came to God in prayer. And so this is how they are setting up these spiritual habits of life together as a community, a unified community. So let's take this now to the 21st century. Today, actually, I was involved in a small group in Chicago when I was going to school in Chicago, and during that time, our small group would meet on a consistent basis, and we would share food with one another. A lot of times, different weeks, each of us would bring a different meal, and through that time, we would open God's Word and we'd go, okay, what can we find here to apply to our lives? So when we go back out from here, we can live lives that are amplified. And so we would have these meals. We would have this time of getting into God's Word. We would share a lot of times at the very beginning of our small group time of like, hey, so how was life for you this week? What did you do? What were your ups? What were your downs? And so through that time, we found one, at the very beginning, it was kind of awkward. It didn't feel comfortable because I didn't really know who those people were. I didn't know if I wanted to share my life with them. But then as time went on and the years went on, it was amazing to see the result that came from it. Because those people were ones who were there when I got married. They were the people there when I was just so tired of school. They were there in the moments where I was super excited because we found out we got a house. That small group, that fellowship, that community that was unified came together and was the place that I found so much joy because of it. And so I wondered tonight, how can we take the next step to devoting ourselves to spiritual habits in a Christian community? What would it look like if Amplify was a place where we came together and we were all practicing these different things together so that we could build one another up to be unified? So those are the first takeaway that we see from this passage. So what's the second? It's this. A unified community is selfless and it's also servant-like. Let's look at verse 43 and see what I mean. It says, a deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all people. So as we look at this passage, we see two primary things. The first is that the apostles performed signs and wonders. So what does that have to apply to this whole thing? We see the apostles were the ones who were supposed to be speaking the life and the ministry of Jesus, right? So what they're saying is they're claiming that this man came, he died on a cross for them, and rose from the dead to save them. And for some of them, they were listening to this and they probably were thinking, these people are out of their minds. How can they say that this man died and he rose again? We've never seen this before. And so these signs and these wonders actually proved that what they were saying was true. That what they were saying actually happened. And so these apostles are living this life where they are performing these signs and wonders, showing that what they're saying is true, and people were amazed at what they were hearing and what they were seeing happen. But that doesn't end there. It also says that the believers then met and they shared everything. If you look at these couple of verses, you can see the words met and shared so many times. You see these believers were selflessly saw that everything that they had as something that could be able to better their community. their Christian community that they were in. See, they saw that they had objects that they could sell, that they could be able to make money and give to those in the community who didn't know or have many means of living. Or they were meeting together and they were sharing one another's time and giving of their time to one another. Because I don't know about you guys, but for me, a lot of times, time in the day gets used up really fast. And we start to fill up the day to the point where we don't have a lot of time for other people. But we see that these believers saw that meeting with one another, being this unified community, was something that was important to them. And something that they wanted to see in their life. So let's continue the story of my small group. So here I am, I'm in it, and I'm starting to get to know who the people are. And in 2016, Hurricane Matthew came, and it hit the island of Haiti. And one of our guys that was in the small group, actually his whole family was down in Haiti at that time. So let me give you some statistics of what happened on it. 150 mile-an-hour wind speeds came through and leveled many different houses. 546 deaths occurred because of Hurricane Matthew. And when they were looking at the amount of damage that took place to homes, they estimated that it was $2.8 billion of damage. So when we get this idea, we start to see that this whole community, was just leveled to the ground. And people were now trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to live when everything that I had is gone? It's been swept away. And so this man that was in our small group decided, you know what, this is a place that I care so much for. This is my home. And so he started to talk with our small group about a vision and a dream that he had of going down there and starting a school for kids that now no longer had buildings to be in, no longer homes to stay in. And so he shared this dream of like, guys, I really want this thing to take place. And our group decided, you know what, we want to help you in that. We want to see this actually take place. And so they said, you know what, we'll give money towards it. We'll go ahead, we're going to pray for you as you're doing it. And then if you need anything else, you tell us and we will get involved. Because we want to see when you are loving your community, we want to be backing all of that. And so now today, that school is being started down in Haiti. And it's exciting to see how when a community is selfless and when they are Christ-centered and they are servant-like, that so much can happen with that kind of community. So many different people can be reached. This can be a place where people can come and they can find a family. So then maybe our question tonight should be, how can we take another step towards serving our fellow followers of Christ? How can we take the step tonight to be able to look around this room and see somebody that we can pour into? Someone that we can care for. Because when we do, we see a unified community. So let's look at what's the last takeaway that we have. We see this. It's a unified community produces blessing. A unified community produces blessing. Look at the very last part of verse 47. Here's what it says. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So this is kind of the closing of the story that we see here at this moment in time. That all of these believers are coming, they're doing these spiritual habits. They are pouring into one another and being selfless, and they're being servant-like. And because of that, we see that the Lord was adding more people to that community. That people were looking at this group and they were going, something's different. Something that I can't explain, but something that I want to be a part of. And so we see that the Lord was showing these individuals who weren't a part of that community that there is something different here. And so more and more people were getting into this group and finding that they were being filled up and that it was a place that they could find joy and happiness in. So when we take the story of Acts and we take the story of the small group and the man in the small group, and we combine those all together, it makes me think of Amplify. It makes me think of what this group could really be. Because I will say, as I read God's Word more and more, I realize the fact that it's not a book that's in the past and it has no meaning on my life today. But actually, it's a book that means something to me every single day. And it changes my life. And it can change your lives too. This place could be a place where people look at it and they go, you know what, Amplify is different for a reason. Because those people in that community aren't bad-mouthing one another or putting one another down, but actually they're building one another up and they're showing one another that we love each other. And that excites me as I think about what Amplify could be. That this could be a place where people feel like I'm truly at home here. Sometimes I don't feel that way at school, but this is a place that I can be. So maybe let's think of some practical steps of how we can be able to go into a community of Amplify that is unified. And so this is maybe some questions that we can ask ourselves. The first one would be, are you currently serving the Christian community well? I think it's good for us to evaluate and look at our own life and go, okay, this is where we want to go, but how am I already in that process of building into my community? And then, on the flip side of that, how could you be serving your community better? That's the second question that we need to ask ourselves, is looking at, okay, this is areas that I'm doing well, where I could say, I look at that person and I'm like, you know what? I'm saying, hey, like, how's your night? And truly wanting to know about it. But then maybe there's areas where I'm going, I just don't have a lot of time to talk to that person. Or, you know, that person kind of is awkward. Like, every time I'm around them, I just don't feel like I want to hear from them. Or maybe it's, you know what, I'm just here to kind of observe, but I'm totally off the sidelines. I don't want to go ahead and be involved that much. I'm just going to watch. So maybe these are different things, or maybe you can kind of specifically think like, okay, that's where I am. That's how I could be doing better in serving this community. Again, the third thing I think of is just kind of a vision casting. Any good company or place that wants to do well looks at the future and they go, okay, where do we want to be? And then how are we going to take those steps to get there? And so that's the same for us tonight. As we look at Acts chapter 2, last week and this week, and we see the fact that people's lives can be changed. Both out in our communities, in the school systems, and also in the Amplified community here. How are we going to get there? Because I don't know about you, but I'm excited for how God could work in this group. I'm excited how each one of you can be able to go into your groups, your friend groups, and be able to reach out to those people and say, you know what, I care so much about you. And I want to see you come to know who Jesus is and the impact that he can make in your life. So with that, I want to pray for you guys tonight and close out excited of what God can do this next week as you guys are in the very beginning of the school year, and also how God can continue to be working in you in whatever activities you're involved in the school. So let's go ahead and pray. God, I thank you so much for just this group of Amplify and the fact that we're able to come together on a night
we're able to open your word and see how you have impacted people's lives in the past, but also, God, how you are impacting our lives today. And so, God, I ask and pray for each one of these students that you would go ahead and just work in their lives in such a way where when they go out into whatever community they're in, they're able to reach the people there, and that they would see something different in these students. That they would see something different in this amplified community. And that because of it, people would be added to the number of Christ followers. That people's lives would be changed because of the love that you have for them. So God, I ask that this week, as these students go into the school systems, as they go into the different communities that they're in, God, may you just work and give these students power and strength and courage to live lives that are amplified. And we pray this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ.